So I'm talking about Tommy Robinson because I think he's relevant. It doesn't mean I think he's right, but I think he's relevant because of the fact that people listen to him, and he does seem to act as a voice for a certain demographic. And I probably fit into that demographic, I suppose. I'm white, I'm British, I'm male, I'm from the UK, I love the UK, and I go to football. I like beards. I like hanging out with my mates. I love my friends and family. So that's Tommy Robinson's kind of core demographic, which on paper I probably fit into, but he doesn't represent me, Tommy Robinson, and he's gained a following because he shares a passion against terrorism, and he has some very extreme views on that, which a lot of people agree with. But just because you agree with his views on terrorism and Islam, which you may do, you may not, doesn't mean you should agree with him necessarily on Black Lives Matter, because they're two very separate issues. Tommy starts off the video, and this is one of his first lines, and he says that he has studied Black Lives Matter for 7 years, and automatically that kind of triggered a red flag in my mind. Because I've probably been studying Black Lives Matter for a week, and I'm guessing he probably started the same place that I did, like what's Black Lives Matter about, and just do some reading up on it. And it took me about 2 days to find out that it wasn't exactly what I thought. It's not that black people think that all white people, there's some sort of conscious conspiracy that all of the white people they're friends with are all talking behind their back saying, why is he getting this job, or why is he not in prison? Because I don't think black people really think that. I can't speak for them, but I don't think that. It's more the subconscious racism that affects it. And Tommy he doesn't really address this once at all. And his whole video is about an hour long. It's an hour and 6 minutes. And for me, he doesn't really say anything of relevance. And I'm going to say why. So first of all, he said he's claimed he's watched Black Lives Matter. He's been researching Black Lives Matter for 7 years, but he seems to have missed a point in his video. From what I think the point is, anyway. And I think he's misrepresenting and he's misguiding a lot of people who don't necessarily share his thoughts, and it's a shame. I think we should be really, really, really careful, because Tommy only really addresses the extreme. His whole hour-long video, he's got a total of 31 videos that he's sharing, and most of these, the vast majority of these, are of the extreme left and the extreme members of Black Lives Matter who were doing all the things that pretty much everyone, not everyone, but most people were condemning. Attack on the police, in causing race hate against white people and causing violence against them. I don't think that is the point that the most of the Black Lives Matter protesters were trying to get across. But Tommy's only focused on that, and it's a shame because you don't really get the full picture. And it's both the left and the right who make this mistake, because the left have been doing it at the weekend as well. We've been saying, oh, look at all this, you're disgusting, you're disgusting, you're disgusting. But we had people like that exactly the same. Well, the left had people like that exactly the same. Me personally, I'd probably say I'm in the middle, slightly leading towards the left, but over the years I've probably gone from middle right and slowly moving towards middle left, just as I've kind of gained life experiences. And I don't think you make any point by talking about the minority, okay? So he's talking about the extreme minority of Black Lives Matters protesters and their actions and their thoughts. And it's not fair because he's not addressed the valid reasons of the majority, which I think a lot of people have come away from and looked into. But Tommy's still focusing on this extreme minority, which, like I say, some of the left are as well. And bizarrely, his focus seems to be on the USA. Obviously, this stemmed from the USA. from George Floyd was murdered by a police officer, white police officer, and it not stemmed from, but it resurfaced from that moment across the world. And we shared people shared lots of videos of stuff happening in the past. But this isn't about campaigning specifically for justice for George Floyd. This is about what that murder represented. And there's been some news reports which have said that there was history between George Floyd and Derek Chauvin, whatever his name is. Whether that's true or not, it's not really that relevant to the bigger picture, because there wouldn't be this mass worldwide outrage if this is the only time black people have felt that they've been targeted. It's not. It just represents hundreds of years of this, if I'm honest with you. And it's all just boiled up when we're fighting coronavirus and black people are fighting coronavirus, but at the same time they're just they're fighting coronavirus like we are, but at the same time they're still fighting racism, which is a much more deeper problem and pandemic which you need to address. So maybe that's why even if it doesn't excuse a lot of the real anger and destruction that really extreme Black Lives Matter protesters have done, maybe we can begin to understand it, if not excuse it. But yes, so Tommy's shared 31 videos in total, and out of that, 27 of those are from the USA. That's 87%. So there's only 4 videos from the UK, and I don't know why. Because USA has its problems, probably a lot worse than the UK. Probably. It's not for me to say that, for sure. But the UK has its issues as well. But Tommy Robinson's not really relevant in the USA, I don't think. I don't think he's got loads of followers of baseball fans who are turning up and saying White Lives Matter. He's relevant in the UK, and I think the reason why he's used these extreme clips in the US is because there's not that many in the UK. There isn't. So if he had those to his disposal, he would have done that. I think he's kind of pushing his own agenda in this little bit. And yeah, I think we need to talk about it in the UK, which he hasn't really done that much. He's talked about the statues, which there's a whole different issue, but let's all just clear one thing up. This weekend just gone, where white people have gone to do anti-protests, if you like, has just proved that both white people and black people, we all have our core of idiots, basically, who are going to go do these stupid stuff which nobody agrees with. And basically everything which Tommy Robinson has showed, a video of black people causing damage, or black people attacking the police, or black people inciting race hate against white people, I could come back and say, look, here you go, Tommy, if please watch this. You don't know who I am, but here's 31 videos of white people doing it to black people. But all he's going to do is find another 31 videos of black people. Eventually we might run out, but we haven't really gained anything. We haven't. All we've done is just establish that they're idiots on both sides. And I think what Tommy does a lot is he uses propaganda, and mainly a lot of his sources aren't really that credible. So I studied at high school World War II, and we studied propaganda and how it was used to inspire the people, and it was used positively. So I kind of left school thinking propaganda is a good thing, but it's actually a very dangerous thing, because the propaganda that Tommy's done is he uses lots of hand movements. He gets very aggressive, but I can do that too. Why is this still going on? Why do we have race wars? We're going on these protests against it, but it's not achieving anything. Why are we still doing it? We're just beating each other up, and nothing's coming from it. Nothing's coming from it. And why don't we sit down and talk about this, and maybe shape a better generation for our kids? So I can do that as well. I can be emotive. Anyone can do that, and they can really hit home for what matters to you. And I think he does too much of that, because he's relating to people, but he's not educating them. He's just riling them up. He's just talking about the things they get angry at. And that's what winds me up a little bit. And he's also shared videos of black people, 4 videos I think, of black people speaking out against Black Lives Matter. These are all in the US. And he's done that to try and prove his point. And he hasn't done, because they don't represent the majority of black people. They don't even represent the majority of people. He's just taking extreme minorities to further his claim. And if he's justifying that this proves that Black Lives Matter, is a false campaign, all of the white people who were protesting for Black Lives Matter, that discredits that basically for him. That could be, by his logic, me saying that, white people are protesting for Black Lives Matter, so everything you stand against is wrong. It doesn't. We can't just keep looking at the extreme left and extreme right. We need to, us guys in the middle, need to talk about things, opinions on both sides, and just formulate our own minds. Don't be aware of false prophets, because nobody out of the 31 videos that Tommy Robinson has shared, he hasn't offered that much context to it, because all of these videos of violence and destruction, I don't reckon they're all from the last 2 weeks. He hasn't said that either. We've just assumed that. So they could be years and years of unrelated issues of just like random clips on the internet. And all of the people who are speaking and demonstrating his point and backing up his point, they're not accredited. These are just some random idiots like me just making a video and putting it on the internet, okay? I don't know shit, he doesn't know shit, and these people don't know shit. So why don't we actually look and educate ourselves? And educating ourselves doesn't mean watching a documentary on Netflix and scrolling through our phone just so we can say we watched it because we care. Educating ourselves, it doesn't mean discussing stuff on Twitter. It doesn't even mean watching the news. I'm not saying don't watch the news, but watch the news and see the topics, but do your own research. Check the accreditations, fact check everything. Don't just take propaganda. He's not once given us one statistic. And if he has given us a video of someone saying statistics, he hasn't linked us to where this is from. Okay? He's just propaganda and false prophets. Instead of listening to the 4 random black strangers who are uploading videos from their mobile phone in America saying Black lives don't matter, all lives matter, and agreeing with him, why don't we actually talk to the people we trust who might have a bit of an insight? We've all, in the UK, we all know black people. We've all got black friends, I'd like to think, and we all probably work with black people. Think of the 3 people, if you're white, why don't you think of the 3 people you feel most comfortable talking about this to? Because I can't speak for all black people, but I would suggest, because that's what I did, I asked 3 people, and they all appreciated me taking the time to understand their worries. Rather than, even if I said I don't understand it, they appreciated that I wanted to hear their views. So why don't we do that rather than listen to Tommy Robinson, who's not black? He's never known what it's like to live as a black man. And the people in America, even the black people in America are speaking against it. We don't know who they are. We can't vouch for them. And also he's used 2 videos of black police officers speaking against Black Lives Matter in America. But it's actually the same police officer. So I want to see if he can find, like a majority of black police officers who don't agree that there's a systemic racism in America. I think it's one key thing. We need to accept that we are not white people that dislike people based on their skin colour, but we need to accept that maybe we do have a bit of an advantage because of prejudice, like unconscious prejudice. And Tommy talks about white supremacy, and white supremacy I don't think is necessarily this is what I used to think it was, is that I used to think that the term white supremacy suggested that me and my white friends had a conspiracy to try and oppress the black people. It doesn't mean that. It means that centuries of years ago, or hundreds of years ago, wherever you are in the world, depending on your country's history, the chances are, if there's white people involved, our ancestors had these views, and when we agreed that it was wrong, it wasn't an overnight fix, okay? Because it's the same system that we have today. The same system, it's just been adapted. It's always been the same system. So we're still working off that system that saw black people enslaved, saw black people not being able to vote, saw black people not be able to get the same jobs as us, saw black people segregated and have inadequate education compared to white people. That's the same system. So their forefathers didn't have the same advantage as our grandparents and their parents and grandparents had to build a great life for their future generations. Black people didn't have that head start like we have. And even now, because this unconscious prejudice, and some conscious prejudice exists as well, but the unconscious prejudice that we have, sorry for my pronunciation of prejudice, has left black people at a disadvantage, not because of us trying now to keep them down. It's just because we haven't addressed it. We haven't seen it from their point of view. And if we think white supremacy is us, going around and secretly trying to keep black people oppressed, then we're wrong. We haven't done any education on it, which is what Tommy Robinson is claiming. And I think he's more confused than any of us on this topic, Tommy, because Tommy, when he was fighting Islam, or Islamic extremists, when he was making these points, to back it up, he was saying that he doesn't have any beef with the black community. He's always saying this, and I can find videos of it. But now it's about white people and black people. It's not about Islam. All of a sudden, he's got these views, which kind of go against everything that he stood for in the past. So we need to just look at him and think, what are you doing, mate, a little bit? He's got an undeniable knack of relating to a niche but significant demographic of the country. It's always been Tommy's biggest strength, but I think he's lost it because he's let himself down. Well, he's let his protesters down, okay? Because he's told them, he's rallied them up, and he said, guys, come on, let's go out, let's do a protest. And then all of a sudden he's realised this is wrong after a couple of days, and he's done a video and he said, no, this isn't right. We shouldn't be doing this. This is going to make things worse. But all of his core following, who pretty much idolise Tommy Robinson, he has got a very core following of who just love him, and he can't do anything otherwise, and they blindly follow him. Not all of his following, but he has got a core demographic who think that. And when they would have got geared up, ready for this weekend away. They think in their head they're going there to defend their country and to defend black people, or defend attack from black people against white people. A lot of them, I think that. And they would have heard Tommy Robinson, and that would have been their narrative for the next couple of days. They would have been talking amongst their friends, maybe talking amongst other people as well, saying, no, it's not right, I'm going to go there, I'm going to protect the statues. And these statues, by the way, have been vandalised many times. Churchill has actually been boarded up, I think, 4 times in the last 10 years. I'm not certain exactly, but Google it. So it's all those outraged. You weren't outraged then for the student protests in 2010, 2011. Churchill was boarded up, but no one said that it was racist or anything like that. And even then, we're still not looking at the bigger picture. So Tommy, all these people who've got riled up and ready, bought their tickets to London. Tommy said, no, you can't do that. But then they look like an idiot if they say, no, I'm not doing it because Tommy Robinson's told me I'm not to go. Because then it looks like they haven't got their own mind. So they're confused because of Tommy's confusion. And it shows a real lack of leadership. He's let himself down here. He's let his followers down. But unfortunately, what he's let down the most is the UK, the country who he says that he loves and he wants to try and protect. And I just don't get it. Like, he says he claims to have studied Black Lives Matter for 7 years, but he needed an extra couple of days to realise that going there would incite more hatred. That took him an extra couple of days. I don't think he studied Black Lives Matter as thoroughly as he says for 7 years. And I think we need to almost step away from him in terms of Black Lives Matter, because he's clearly confused himself. I'm not saying he's an unintelligent man, I'm not saying he's a good man, but he's confused. And for leadership, you need to be able to look to someone who knows what the aim is. Okay, just think about what he's saying for a second, because he hasn't actually offered any valid points apart from maybe one. And I'm sure someone can clear this up for me, because this is the one comment which I've heard recently which alienated myself. I'm trying to relate to Black Lives Matter as much as possible. But there was one thing Anthony Joshua said where he basically encouraged, it was a speech which was given to him apparently, but I'm not taking that away, because Anthony Joshua, he needs to be able to research what he's saying before he addresses such a wide demographic. And he's basically, I'm paraphrasing, but he said to boycott companies that play a part in white institutionalized or institutional racism, and invest in black-owned companies. And I thought, that is going to cause some division, I think. So I'm not sure what you mean by that. But then I watched Akala. Now, for anyone who doesn't know who Akala is, I suggest you follow him, because he's a rapper, but he's also a poet. He's actually the brother of Miss Dynamite, I believe. But he's very intelligent, and he's been talking about this for a long time. And not just the last 2 weeks. He knows more. He's actually researched this. He's written a book, which I haven't read, but I've ordered, called Natives. It's been recommended to me by a few people recently, so I can't wait to read that. But Akala's basically said that, and I'm paraphrasing, but I'll read it. Due to subconscious institutional racism in the UK, black people are victims of the system. Therefore, as a way to counteract this, they encourage self-community development. So that's investing in, black-owned businesses. And from what I gather, okay, I'll try to see it from the point of view of Anthony Joshua, whoever said that to Anthony Joshua. I think it's not them trying to gain a superiority. It's just black people trying to, just do whatever they can to make it an even playing field for them, and us, which it should be. And maybe if they boost their own, black people's economy, it might help that generation. If I'm honest, I think they're just clutching at straws because they've run out of ideas, because white people aren't listening. But if anyone can message me and tell me, maybe a point that I've missed on that, I'd appreciate it, because I'm still a bit hazy on that myself. But I think what we learned is that this isn't really the time for Tommy Robinson. Yeah, he is relevant, but it's only because people are listening to him. His views are a bit blurry and almost contradict themselves, to be honest with you. I think by doing that U-turn, he's really just lost all hope. He's in his video, and this is what I rounded up. I've written a blog and a breakdown about it as well, just going into detail about what he's done. But he's not addressed valid concerns of black people who are not inciting violence. Tommy has not once shown you a video out of the 31 videos that he's shared of a credible source illustrating his point. Or he hasn't given you any links to check this up. It's not good enough, I don't think. I don't think we can take that as gospel. He's not addressed... He's not shown any potential to be able to diffuse the situations at all. All he's done is... And he makes the point that we've gone backwards over the last 2 years. But that's because of you, Tommy, over the last 2 weeks. That's because of you a little bit. Because lots of other communities outside of, of your demographic haven't gone backwards. So lots of other people are researching. Lots of other people are talking to their black friends. It's you who are saying all lives matter. And for anyone who hasn't quite caught up on this yet, all lives matter. Yes, they do. But our lives, white people's lives, aren't in threat as much as black people's lives. That's the case. And that's the point. So anyone saying all lives matter, there's not many people who are saying that all lives don't matter. He's shown one video of a British black person. It doesn't actually show her saying this, but just shows. I'm not saying you can just hear her saying it. She's recording, but I'm not necessarily saying it's fake. But she says, "No, Black Lives Matter," and the copper says, "All lives matter." And the copper shouldn't be saying that anyway, of course. But then the black person says, "No, Black Lives Matter, white lives don't matter," something like that. This is a minority, a very extreme minority, so let's not pay attention to that. And for this reason, I don't think we should listen to Tommy Robinson on this. I think Tommy needs to stay silent, because he doesn't represent me as a white British football fan, okay? And he talks about, and one other thing he talks about as well is black on black crime. And Akala, again, I go back to him. He addressed this point, and Tommy Robinson obviously hadn't actually researched this, because Akala's mentioned this a few times. So maybe Tommy Robinson hasn't researched Black Lives Matter for 7 years like he says he has. Because no matter where you go, in Germany, in the USA, in Mexico, in America, you get gang wars, okay? No matter where you are. In Liverpool, in London, no matter where you are. That's not race related, that's gang related. That's territorial. And for anyone who is a football fan and hasn't quite seen that yet, think about no, if ever you have like an altercation with a rival fan, even if it's just just shouting and stuff like that. Yeah. So if Ipswich and Norwich fans were to attack each other, that's not white on white crime necessarily. You know, like that doesn't mean they don't think all white lives matter. That's Ipswich versus Norwich, or Manchester United versus Liverpool, whatever it is. It's not necessarily black on black or white on white. So I don't think that's a valid point. And I think Tommy should just keep silent, please. But if anyone wants to read like the full breakdown I did, it's probably about a 15-minute read. I'll link it as well. But yeah, I'll be interested to hear your views, especially on the Anthony Joshua matter, because like I say, I still wouldn't mind someone helping me out with that a bit, because I struggle. Anyway, thanks if you listened. Bye bye.